Okay, so I'm just going to give a thumbnail. And then talk. I don't know if you have my other slides, but it's not that important. I can talk, just summarize what I presented to the myeloma committee, which I think is as important, if not more, than the specific protocol.
Yeah,
But
I
I'm
don't
going to
think
give.
we have those, Tom.
That's fine. That's fine. I think I can go over it, and I think everyone here is familiar with the issues. So this is 2209, which is chaired by Dr. Alawadi and Dr. Yee, and I'm the VA representative. And it's for older non-transplant eligible patients with myeloma. And next slide. It's addresses, keep going. I'm just gonna hit the high points. So it looks at two commonly used regimens in this transplant ineligible group, DRD with our maintenance, which is the Maya trial, and RVD light with
Can you hang on just a second,
our
Tom?
maintenance. Yeah, go ahead. I see someone can't hear me.
Yeah,
Steve, you can hear me, right?
yeah, we can hear you here.
Okay.
Okay, we're good now. Sorry.
Okay, good. All right. So this is really the crux of it. It's DRD, our maintenance, as in Maya, RVD light with our maintenance, which is a fairly common regimen for many people in the transplant ineligible. And then one of the twists here, and this gets into some nuances that I'm not going to go into too much detail, but the maintenance question, which is something that's being asked in many settings, is what the optimal maintenance is, transplant eligible or transplant ineligible. And if you look at the only difference between arm 2 and arm 3 is R maintenance versus DARA R maintenance. So DR versus R. Next slide. Patients have to be frail or intermediate fit. There's an online assessment according to the Palumbo criteria. Next slide. And these are the primary objectives, looking at PFS, arm 1, arm 2, and OS versus 1-3, which is the difference in different maintenance arms. Next slide. Okay, next slide. Well, okay, there's a quality of life component, which is very important, especially in this population. Next slide. I realize I'm glancing over a lot of critical things, but for now, I just want to get the high points out. And then this is a component which has become key to many myeloma studies, and that is the role of MRD, assessing MRD, the predictability of MRD, what MRD means in terms of response, PFS, and OS. And in this, there's different ways to look at MRD. In this particular trial, as in some others, it's with the commercial clonoSEQ assay. And that actually is going to segue into some of the challenges we're facing within the VA. But this is not the only trial looking at using clonoSEQ, and it's certainly not the only one looking at MRD assessment. I think that's probably all I'm going to say about the actual protocol. And then I want to speak in more general terms. You can put up whatever slide you'd like. Just in terms of what I don't think we need to keep going through this right now. But so I presented to the myeloma committee, and what I said was that, what I had to say was relevant not just for 2209 and not just for myeloma, but for all cooperative group trials, and that is the issue of having VA participation in CTEP-approved cooperative group trials. And I'm literally preaching to the choir this morning that, VA has a population that on the whole is aging. It's predominantly male, which means that, these are target diseases that we need to be addressing. Now, the clonoSEQ assay in particular, but there are others, highlights a problem that I think many of you are aware of, and Steve and I have talked at length, and Stephanie McGowan, our data manager, is on the call, and I have spoken at length with a number of people, senior people in VA, local people, and that is that my understanding was that there was really a mandate, a national mandate, that VA would cover costs associated with CTEP-approved cooperative trials. But what we're seeing in my own institution and others is that different departments are balking at covering some of these costs. Specifically in my institution, they said they don't want to pay, the pathology department doesn't want to pay for the clonoSEQ assay. And there are other reports elsewhere of pharmacy not wanting to pay for certain drugs on other SWOG studies. And, it could be pharmacy, it could be pathology, it could be, radiology not wanting to pay for a PET scan or something. But that is a very serious problem. And one of the things that I want to discuss, not just in terms of 2209, but how we can address this and what pressure we can bring to bear. One of the debates that comes up is clinical versus research. And, I have my own ideas on that. It's a big question, but my understanding is that if this was going to work, and the mandate was that this was VA clinical dollars, just like any other third-party payer would cover these costs, I think it becomes a very slippery slope once you start taking money from research dollars to pay for clinical trials and cooperative groups. And I think you erode the funds and the resources in the research coffers that were probably not designed for that. But that's kind of an open question. And regardless of what I might think or what Steve might think, how can we bring this issue to bear on the people that can make a decision? So I think that's what I had to say. We can talk a little more about the trial itself, but the bigger issues go beyond 2209 and beyond myeloma.
Yeah, and Sharon shared something with me before the meeting that I think we'll get to later in the agenda, of a tool that we can use through CTSU to maybe make the argument more convincing to leaders. But yeah, it's not just 2209. We had it with 1800D in some settings, and so it is something that needs to really go up the chain and have some authority behind it to say, we will pay for the same things Medicare will pay for. So if not more. So let's go with some questions about the trial for Dr. Chauncey. Any questions from the audience or online?
Well, I actually just wanted to comment about the question related to the paying for the clonoSEQ assay. I wanted to let you know that on the administrative side of SWOG, we've been corresponding with, I'm sorry, got to find his name again, with Dr. Grant Huang, and discussing with him possibilities for getting this test covered. So for example, one of the issues that we see is that if this were usually if you're trying to provide a research test without cost for a subpopulation of participants in a clinical trial, it triggers Medicare third-party payer rules that say you cannot do that. If you're going to provide a test free to any participant in the trial, you have to provide it free for all of the participants. But there's a wrinkle here because it wouldn't be Medicare that would be paying for this test. What we want to do is ask the company that we're collaborating with. We haven't done that yet. We have no idea whether they'd say yes or no, but our idea was that we would go to the company and ask them if they would pay for this test for this subpopulation in the VA. But then we have to make sure that we're not triggering any sort of third-party payer issues. And so my question to Grant and the VA is that because you're not, it's not Medicare that would be affected here. It would be the Veterans Administration, which is a completely separate third-party payer than Medicare. Is there any way that we can do this and not violate those Medicare payment rules? And he promised to look into this. It's a complicated question. And so he's been working with a lot of people. And we don't have a definitive read on that yet, but I just wanted to let you know that we were exploring that.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll probably have to talk to one in the VA is called the STAR attorneys. They're the research folks. And but Grant's got a lot of irons in the fire, so I'm going to have to probably nudge him a little bit, and then I can also nudge some of our STAR folks, which is that's good information.
I think that'd be great.
That we can start working on that. Tom will be happy to hear that.
Yeah, this is Pankaj.
Yeah, and I've got a couple comments. I'm sorry, who was speaking there? I didn't.
Tom, this is Pankaj. I was trying to speak, but go ahead.
No, who just spoke?
He's in the back of the room right now. I'm Nathan.
Nathan Erickson, yes, with the
Okay.
SWOG.
And he's with the VA.
No, he's with our SWOG chair's office, yes.
Oh, okay. Yes. All right. Thank you. Yes, as you know, and I know Sharon knows, and Steffi and I met with Grant probably before you did. You know, one of the questions is, are we going down the right pathway? Because Grant is in research and not, but yeah, I'm intrigued by what you said. I want clonoSEQ for my non-study patients. I mean, I have, and not just throwing it out there to test everybody at 6 months, but I have some critical patients, high-risk myelomas, plasma cell leukemias I'm treating. I can make clinical decisions, and I would like to look at MRD, and it's NCCN approved, and I can't get anyone to run it. So, I mean, it is, again, I'm not trying to, I think we need to stay focused on what we want to accomplish, but this is a big issue, not just for research studies, but yeah, let's talk about research and try to make it work and try to figure out if Grant Wong and the research pathway are the right way to go. But thank you for your comments. And then I think Pankaj had a question.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to sort of expand on that a little bit. I think, Tom, you and I have talked about the clonoSEQ as well, and I agree it's a concern. I mean, in principle, I think if there is a test which is FDA approved or NCCN approved for clinical purposes, I do think that the VA should cover it in the appropriate clinical setting. Naturally, we are all sensitive to resources, but the fact is that nowadays, with all the treatments we have, you think about it in the big picture, 1 month of any of our systemic therapies costs a lot more than any one of these single tests, which we use to make that decision. So from a fiscal perspective as well, it makes total sense. Now, in the big picture, this is as many of us are involved with the Navigate program, and then the whole premise of the Navigate program is to create an infrastructure for veterans participating in NCI-sponsored studies. And that whole program is set up on that premise. So we are a site for Navigate. So I brought this big issue up as a bigger issue for all NCI-sponsored studies, which are federal taxpayer-sponsored studies, in the spirit of the Navigate program, on the National Navigate calls, which Grant attends and NCI leadership attends as well. So what I have suggested is that we reach between VA central office and the NCI, we reach an agreement that just like we do for CSP, VA Cooperative Studies Program studies, everything is covered by the VA. If a CSP study is approved, that's again a federal study. So what I've suggested is that we reach an MOU with the NCI and hopefully with the DoD as well, that all NCI-sponsored studies will come under the same umbrella, that all federally funded studies will be treated like CSP studies, and the costs of veterans participating in those are covered, just like they are for CSP studies. So the issue, one of the issues, as you alluded to, it brings up is sort of VA research dollars versus clinical dollars. So it's not a decision which Grant and his office can take. But I am hopeful that, we've started that conversation, and I think that's going to help not only with this study, but across the board. Because we come up with this all the time. For example, at Long Beach, we have to do these impact estimation worksheets for radiology, pharmacy, pathology. And the question comes up that who's going to pay for that? Now, the monies that we get from SWOG or any NCI studies are just a token payment, really. They don't even pay for, one scan or 1 month of drug. So we do need to have if we really want the VA to continue and enhance participation of veterans in NCI funded studies, I think this is a critical issue. And it needs to be addressed not, I don't think, on a study by study basis, but more in a global manner. And we have the opportunity to do that in the spirit of Navigate, which both organizations are committed to. So let's see if we, hopefully we'll make some headway on that, but those are just my thoughts.
Yeah, and certainly they're rolling out an expansion of Navigate. So this might be kind of the perfect time to make that point very clear that Navigate's not going to work either in its existing form or its expanded form if we don't provide that kind of coverage. And it's probably we need to take something up to Dr. Ramoni, work with Grant and Rachel. And I think she would be definitely would love to hear this. And she's the one that can kind of advance it kind of outside of ORD, saying, this is what we need to do. And so there's some folks there that we can definitely talk to. And I think we just need to, get everybody in a room and lock the door and
Don't let them out.
don't sir and just give them a lot of water, and then right, that's right. Yeah, white smoke.
White, yes. Yeah.
So we will work on that for not just 2209, but certainly all the other things. And like I said, Sharon showed me a tool this morning that I didn't even know was there in CTSU that helps identify coverage of what Medicare and others will pay for. So I think we kind of need to get moving. Anything else, Tom?
Well, yeah, no, I mean, this is deja vu all over again. We've been this pathway, and there have been MOUs. And the reason I mention that is because hopefully we can, I can dig some of those up, and they're also a starting point, because we've been this road before, and we thought it was resolved. I thought it was resolved before I started working on 2209. So I mean, some of the work has been done. People may decide they want a new MOU, but we've been this pathway before.
Yeah, I think we need to. I think that old MOU. I'm trying to remember who wrote that. It was like early 2000s. That VA would cover everything, but I think it's kind of either expired or there's just been so much turnover in ORD.
Still there. I mean,
So one of the things that comes up, like on our impact estimation worksheets, for instance, and again, I raised it on the Navigate call to ask for, guidance from Grant and others, is on the impact estimation worksheet, you write out the various things. And it says there's a checkbox that is the funding internal or external. And to me, that's become a little confusing, because if we say the VA is going to cover these, then theoretically it's VA internal funding. However, it's not a VA grant, or it's not a VA project. So, there's some confusion in the field about this. And I think some consistency will be accomplished by guidance and some consensus at the central level.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think this has to come from, otherwise you're going to have every individual lab, pharmacy kind of make decisions on the fly based on today's budget. estimations, so.
Were there any chats that had questions or
Uh,
comments that were
just
appropriate?
about. Just about opening studies in general, and we'll get to that later. So any other questions or comments on 2209?